Hi, I'm Bill Friend. Installing your own Trillium hardwood floor is fast and easy. Today I'm going to walk you through all the various steps from beginning to the end. We're going to be installing over top of an existing laminate floor that's kind of dated, but still in flat and good structural condition. You're going to need a few very basic tools as follows. So I've got a table saw, a miter saw, straight edge, small carpenter's square, a pencil, and a tape measure. All right, so let's get started. You'll notice I'm in the left corner of the room, which is where we must start the installation from. And we're going to build what's called a double row. The reason for that is we've got some baseboard heaters here, and we need to actually install that row slightly back from the wall. So we're going to do the entire length of the row, and then once that row is finished, we're going to actually slide that row in under those heaters. Now notice how I've got a half plank here. All the other planks are full length planks. That's important to get your first row nice and straight. All right, so we're gonna set a shim up against the wall. Slide your first plank tight to it. That leaves a little expansion gap so that when your floor expands and contracts through the seasons, it can do so freely. Align your second plank perfectly so these edges are smooth. Bring your next plank even with here, the end, and bring it together and close them up. Look how perfectly they went together. We're going to do this the whole way down the floor now. So I'm in the far right corner. I'm going to put a shim up against the wall. And from that shim is where I'm going to measure. That way I get a perfect measurement for the remaining space. So 33 and 1/8. Now, very important, measure from the end of the plank that goes here. And that way your cut at 33 and 1/8 is going to fill exactly that space. Use your square, square it up, nice clean line. Now I'm going to measure my second plank to save myself some trips out to the saw. And again, do the same thing. Measure from the wall, 9 3/8. And I'm going to use this small plank here to minimize my waste. 9 3/8. Mark my line. And we're going to go out to the saw and make some cuts. So our double row is all installed. We've put in our cuts at the end. You want to be in the middle of the row to slide this in and up to the wall. Don't be at one end or the other, it'll kind of twist on you. You're just going to slide her up and take your shims, install them in tight to the wall. You just go along the entire row and push it up tight against those shims. All right, so I'm back on the left side of the room where we started our installation, and these are my two cuts from the far end. And I'm going to set them up so that I want to create a good stagger in the rows. As long as your pieces are not any shorter than about 6 inches, you can reuse them. So I've set out my second two rows here using all of the different lengths. And on that note, notice that there are actually 4 different lengths in the box. And what you want to do is to make sure that you distribute those shorter and medium lengths and longer lengths evenly throughout the floor. Another detail, if you have some planks that are lighter and darker or have different grain patterns on them, make sure that you put different looking planks well distributed throughout the floor so you don't get groups of dark or groups of light planks. That'll create a really nice, well-balanced floor. I want to take a moment and talk about the locking system. This is a very important part of this product and why it creates such a beautiful floor with absolutely tight joints that will never gap or open up over time. The locking system works in two ways. On the long side, you've got a long flange, and you notice a little lip here. On the opposite side of the plank, there's a groove that aligns with that. So once they lock together, no matter how hard you pull, that plank can never ever come apart or open up over time. Same on the end. You've got that same system where you've got a flange here, and on the back side, a corresponding flange here as well. So again, when those planks lock together on the ends, no matter how hard I pull, I cannot pull that plank apart. So your floor is always perfectly tight, perfectly straight. Very important detail, let's say you have a spill on your floor, one of your kids spills a glass of milk or water, that water will not run in between the planks and get underneath your floor. You've got time to clean it up and your floor will never be damaged by that. All right, so when you're doing your floor, some rooms have some trickier parts to measure and cut. And a complicated cut can be simplified by breaking it down into its simple pieces. So an example here, I have what we call a compound cut. I've got to make two different cuts on the board. How to do that and get it right and not waste a plank. Firstly, measure your distance here and mark it. As you can see, I've done that. Now that 45, that starts somewhere along that line. To position that, measure from the edge of the board here, and you're going to want to leave a little tiny gap for expansion. So I've measured that at 3.5 inches, and at 3.5 inches, that's where that line starts. Now to get that at 45, this is at 45 degrees. This square has that angle already set into it. So if you notice at 3.5 inches, I've marked that line right there. And then to cut, you'll firstly cut here, cutting this piece off, and then you'll make your second cut here on your saw, adjusting your saw at 45 degrees as well. Trim that off. When we come back, you're going to see it'll drop in perfectly. Well, all right, we're down to the last stage of the floor. The main body of the floor is all installed. The last step is to rip the last row in. You'll notice we have a gap here, and this gap rarely is consistent in width. So what's going to be really important is that you measure about every 12 inches along the plank. So if on this plank here, my piece at this end is about 2.5 inches wide, but at the other end is about 1 3/4. So I've measured a few distances along the way to accommodate the wane in that wall. And you'll do that on each plank as you go one by one, all the way along the wall. All right, so we've got the whole floor down. This is a perfect one-day reno from start to finish. I hope the things I've shown you today really help you with your installation. I can tell you this floor, the paint, the decor, it really has brought the whole room together nicely. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.